Welcome to the Private Practice Pro podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping therapists cultivate success. Here's your host, Kelley Stevens.
This podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. I've been using Simple Practice since 2016, which has helped me run a smooth and profitable private practice over the years. It has simplified everything from scheduling to billing, giving me a better balance between the work I'm so passionate about and the family time I'm not willing to miss out on. Check out the episode notes to get a free 2-month trial of Simple Practice, my preferred all-in-one HIPAA-compliant solution.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Private Practice Pro podcast. I'm so excited to have Kate here. And Kate, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So tell us, first of all, where you're sitting, because you could be anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your practice, who you see, where you're located, all of that.
Yeah. So I'm in my private office here in Glendale, Wisconsin. I wish I was in California because it's probably warmer. It's freezing here. But I own my own practice called Safe Space Therapies. Do you want me to say what I specialize in? I feel like I have my elevator pitch.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So specialize in working with adults diagnosed with PTSD, working with my peers in the LGBTQ community. And I really love working with young professionals who have anxiety or anxiety disorders.
I love it. I know I always love hearing everybody's elevator pitch, because I feel like that's so much of what we talk about, of like getting it down, you know?
Yes.
So, and you are sitting in your new office, right?
I'm so excited. Like, there's a blue couch. I don't know if you can tell that it's blue.
I can see it. I like that it's blue. I love that it's blue. I always wanted a blue velvet couch. One of my friends got one from like West Elm or something, and I was like,
I got a fancy, I can't remember where I got it from now, but a fancy one. Yeah.
So, okay. So we're going to break down for anyone who's listening how we met, because I think that it's like kind of an interesting story. So, and I don't know if I've told you it from my perspective, but when I first launched Private Practice Pro, I got an email from Andy. So do you want to tell everyone who Andy is?
Yeah. Andy's my spouse. Yeah.
So I got an email, Andy, saying, I really believe in Kate, and I want Kate to be able to open her private practice and believe in herself. It was the sweetest email I've ever received. I mean, I will never forget it. And just saying, like, I want Kate to believe in herself. I'm going to help her in any way that I can. I think it was talking about video and being able to help you with video and wanting to gift you my course. And this was before it ever came out, you know? But I was just so touched by somebody believing so much in you to want to give you that push out the door, you know? And I don't even know what it was for. What was their birthday or something? Or
I think it was my birthday. Yeah, my 34th birthday, because I'm 35 now. So and I had no idea they were even reaching out to you. I just remember following you in your early days, like Private Practice Pro just was launched. And I was like, oh my God, this clinician is so cool. Like, look at all the stuff they're doing. And I would follow and like, and the seed was kind of planted in my head. And I would show Andy all your videos. Look how cool this is. Look at this. Look at this. And then Andy, just reached out to you without me even knowing. And
it was the sweetest email. I mean, I just think it's so cool to have somebody in your corner that's saying, you can do this, you know, you got this. So take us back maybe to that before you opened your private practice and where your journey, did you go to school in Wisconsin? Tell us a little bit about your journey prior to private practice.
Yes. So I went to school here, got my master's degree, had no idea that I wanted to do private practice. Started in like community case management stuff, worked in a hospital setting, and then got really burned out and moved to private practice. But like those early days, I was totally comfortable and thought I'm going to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. Like, had no idea that I would do this.
So when you went into grad school, were your eyes set on private practice at all? Or did you think like, no, I'm going to work for a hospital? Or what did you go in thinking when you first started?
I mean, I had no idea. I really didn't. Like I told you in that video, the pie in the sky dream was maybe to have my own private practice, but that was something that felt like so out of reach, or something I would have to be in the field for 20 years or something before I could do that. And like, here I am.
I know, isn't it crazy? Did you know anyone when you were in grad school or early in your career that had a private practice?
No.
None of your professors or anyone?
No. I mean, my professors, like maybe some of them occasionally saw clients on the side, but I think a lot of them were like primarily professors or really involved in research. Yeah. And I knew that I didn't want to do research, but I didn't see anybody doing that yet.
Yeah. I know. I find that that's one of the hardest things, like in the programs that I've taught in and in the program I was in, a lot of times students won't have any exposure to anyone in private practice during their whole academic journey. People assume that you can't be in private practice until you have, been in the field, like you said, for 20, 30 years. And that's just not true. So you did all of your licensing hours where? At a hospital or or kind of all over? Or where did you do them?
I did them. I spent a year as a case manager, and that was so tough. I feel like I got like thrown in the deep end. Yeah. And I really just needed somewhere to get my licensing hours. And those, like at least 10, 11 years ago, like that was kind of the only place that you could like get your clinical hours.
Was in the case management setting.
Yeah. And I'm not even a social worker. So yeah. So that was like eye-opening for me in so many ways. Like I learned a lot of good stuff there, but it was really, really hard as a first job. What was your
day-to-day like doing in that job?
I was doing like really classic case management stuff, doing med deliveries, managing people's finances, like working with really, really acute mental health concerns and folks that like maybe were homeless or struggling with addiction or lived in some pretty crummy places. So like driving myself around as a pre-licensed clinician and knocking on doors, giving, like all that kind of stuff. It was like a crash course in how to be a social worker. So
wow. I know noticed like a lot of students often are in positions like that. They're driving their own car, number one. And one common complaint I hear from students is this idea that like, when am I going to learn to be sitting like face to face as opposed to doing something with a client? Did you feel that way at all?
Yes. Yeah. And I bugged my clinical supervisor at the time because I wanted that one-on-one. I knew I wanted to do therapy. So I bugged them and they said, hey, you can do this. Like if you're working your 40 hours and you want to work more, you can.
You want to work more, you can do this. Yeah.
You can do this like on the side and we'll pay you your hourly rate, which was absolute crummy pay. Right. And so I did. Like I had a couple of my clients on my caseload who were open to doing one-on-one therapy with me. I had no idea what I was doing, and I got like zero supervision doing it. But like I needed to start on that path at least.
Isn't that so true? Like I feel like so many of us, I can think of situations like that where I was with those first few clients and I got no supervision.
Yeah. Like where did you start your first year in pre-license stuff?
So I started, it's funny, I actually haven't really talked about this on the podcast. I worked at a hospital in their, they had like an intensive outpatient program for severe mental illness. The hospital has since been sold and changed names. And just to give you like a sense of this hospital, it's always been on like the list of 10 hospitals in America you should try not to go to as a patient, like for a variety of reasons. I think mostly they're typical, they have other controversies that they've had. But anyway, this was a long time ago, and so it sold. But it was very much like what I think of as kind of that first experience. So a lot of case management, a lot of just like, oh, this person needs to talk to someone, talk to them. I mean, not really this like structured, what you think of as, or what I think of as traditional one-to-one therapy. And I think in many ways, kind of like you're saying, it was such a good experience because I learned to just be on my feet but I had that frustration of like, wait, I thought I was training to be a therapist, and I'm more like a case manager, camp counselor, med distributor. Just day to day. I mean, I like would clean the bathroom, I mean, it was just like everything. It wasn't like, and not that there's anything wrong with that, I mean, I think those were really good experiences. But I think as a first year student, I kind of thought like, is this what my career is going to be, or what did I sign up for? Kind of, I wasn't seeing the full picture.
Totally.
And that's scary when you're spending this, I was like taking out thousands of dollars in student loans and thinking like, is this the right decision? Did I do the right thing? I don't know,
Yeah.
Okay. So after you worked in that setting, where did you go next?
I then worked in a hospital-based setting like you. So then I spent like 6.5, 7 years in a hospital-based setting. It was really focused in like specialty programs and research, and was one of the first clinicians to start in their PHP. It was only PHP at the time, program for treating trauma and PTSD. So coming from, I remember this is such a funny story, like coming from my clinical case management position where like we still had the old computers that were like fat on the back. And then coming to this hospital-based setting, I was like, oh my God, this is a hotel. Like this is like a luxury experience, but it wasn't.
Computers and agency setting. I don't know, like, I mean, I know why, but underfunded, but so like dial up internet, we for sure.
Yes.
I get
horrible.
it.
So I went to the hospital-based setting, and I had some good learning experiences there, some great learning experiences there, and then some not so great learning experiences there, like clinicians who engage in some unethical stuff with clients, and like that was really a hard learning experience. Thankfully, I did not, because I kind of knew like you're not supposed to do those things, but like had some really good clinical supervision there, really met some great people. But again, that was a crash course in like how to work in a really acute setting with some really acute clients.
Right. And but you did it for 6 or 7 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. So like there, I had some great training moments. I got to train other clinicians, and like I worked there during the pandemic. I knew this was going to come up today.
Yes.
And like you mentioned cleaning toilets, and I was like, yeah, we had to do that like during the pandemic. I was like, I am now like 8 or so years into my like licensing career, like 5 years post licensure, 6 years post. I should not be cleaning toilets. I love janitors. I think they're super important, but like I did not sign up to do that.
Yeah.
So I left and then did private practice.
What was it like so you're in that setting for quite a while. I would assume that clinicians kind of came and went too, right? Or did you have staff that stayed the whole time you were there?
So the two clinicians I'm thinking of who engaged in some unethical stuff, like they were kind of booted out. But for the most part, the team that I worked with was there for a really long time. Like I got in with like the right people at the right time, and the whole clinic there, like not even just my program. Some people had been at the hospital sitting for like 10, 15, 20 years of their career. It was like a really rooted community.
Right.
So it was weird for somebody to leave.
Right.
And a couple people left before me, but then I left too. But most people stayed.
When you decided to leave then, and you're in this tight community, how did you make that decision was that scary, or was it?
Yes.
when did you start to get those inklings that you wanted to go?
Yeah. So like during the pandemic, like 2020 felt a little bit like a dumpster fire of a year for me personally, honestly. And like, I can laugh about it now, and I think it's good to laugh about it. But like at the time, there was so much happening in my personal life, in my professional life, like just to be super vulnerable, because I feel like that's helpful. Like you learn from that. I was getting a divorce from somebody who was addicted to alcohol.
Yeah.
I got diagnosed with melanoma, like moved out of my house, quit my job. Like there was so much stuff happening.
In a
and
pandemic.
I felt like,
Like, meanwhile,
in the
we're
pandemic.
in a national crisis. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So like that year, I just decided, okay, if I'm going to get a divorce and move out of the first home that I have, I might as well quit my job and do something different. Like, let's just rock your whole world like a snow globe or something.
Right.
And yeah, like, and I also met Andy, and that was so lovely. I don't even know how we got here, but I wanted to be vulnerable and like share that.
I think it's so important to say it that way too, because, I know I often will tell people like, save this amount of money to start a private practice and make sure you had this experience and, these kind of well-crafted plans. And it's funny that you say that. The year that I decided to open my private practice, I had similar things going on. I had had some relationship issues. I moved. It was just and I didn't do the things often that I tell people to do. I kind of felt the same way. Like, I have nothing else to lose. Like, I'm just going to fucking do this. And I think sometimes when you feel like your life is on fire or dumpster fire, it can I felt like for me, it made me brave in a way. It's like, whatever, I'm already out of the safety of it all. So why not just blow it all up,
That's exactly, that's exactly how I feel. Let's just blow it all up and truly start over everything. Yeah.
So when you left your job then, did you have a clean break where you said, okay, I'm going to leave and then start new? Or did you do a transition, or how did that kind of work?
That's such a good question. So I left, it was a clean break, and then bounced to a group private practice, and was there for a little bit, and then went to another private practice for a little bit. And then I was like, I gotta not work for other people. I think that's just my personality. I need to be not working for other people.
Oh, yeah. So when you left the group practice, were you able to take any of your clients with you, or how did that work?
Yes, thankfully, I think because we were still, it was still in the pandemic, those first 3 years. I think we just got out of the first 3 years. Technically, the pandemic is over, right? I don't know.
I have no idea. I mean, I feel like I have so much for the I feel like I've seen all those people post these videos, here's where I was 3 years ago, here I am now. I have no idea. I mean, technically, I don't know, we got to talk to Fauci or something, right?
Yes.
I want to say it's over, but then I feel like I'm going to get a million comments on this episode being like, it's not over, so I don't know.
It's not over.
The acute version of it, hopefully, is over.
The acute version. And I don't want to negate, I know people experience a lot of trauma, in the pandemic, people lost loved ones or lost their jobs or things like that. But my stuff was just all of these really bad things happening, and then the pandemic on top of it. So, yeah. But yeah, I could take some of my clients with me. Did you ever work for a group practice? Were you able to take clients with you?
Yeah, I did. So I worked for a group, probably similar to your hospital experience in a way, for 4.5, almost 5 years. I had a slow transition out. And I had kind of a different role with them. So half of my job was doing their marketing, and the other half was seeing clients, because I've seen teenagers historically who come after school. And so I think I made the mistake. I gave them 3 months notice, which like I always tell people like, why did I do that? You know, I mean, it's just this awkward when you give too much notice. It's like you're there. 3 months is like, you know, a long time, 90 days. So that was probably a mistake because we were all like, is this going to, like, when is this happening? But because I did their marketing, I felt like it was important. You know, like, you know, you build these marketing plans each quarter, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, I was able to take, when I started my private practice, like fully on my own, I think I had maybe 10 consistent appointments a week that I had taken from my previous practice. So I certainly wasn't full. Like for me, a full practice tends to be around like 23 people a week, depending on the life phase I'm in. Not currently, right? I have a little kid, but so I was able to take some, which gave me the confidence. I think at least I was making some money, you know.
Yes.
And I took a full-time. I was like, I'm going to invest in a full-time office, even though I'm not full. That was the scary part.
That's probably so scary.
I know, it was so scary. So when so you left and it was the middle of the pandemic. So did you go first to telehealth or did you get an office?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So when I was working at the hospital, we did a really quick pivot to telehealth, which was very weird for like group-based therapy. Everybody, like, internet glitched and nobody knew what to do. Like, but at the group private practice that I went to after the hospital, I did, I think, a mix of both. Like they really strongly encouraged us to do in person. So we just did masks and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh, doing therapy in masks was it was wild.
So hard.
It was so hard.
I don't know about you, like when you couldn't see you couldn't see anything. I had to like overly emote with my eyebrows and
like, whoa.
Yeah. But in the hospital-based setting, it was so like they were at first didn't use any PPE and then started to use PPE when I was there. And so we had at some points like a mask, and then they wanted us to wear this little like plastic visor over our face in sessions, or to wear glasses. And it was just like, how in the world am I going to do therapy like this? It was crazy.
Wild. And then the client's wearing a mask too, I'm assuming. So
yeah.
I mean, that's like taking away half of our body language tools that we can use, you know?
Yeah.
For a little while, I did some in-person sessions and I really preferred Zoom in a way because I could see people and they were relaxed. You know, they're not like out in the world worried that they're going to get COVID, you know? So, okay, but when you started in your office, when you started your practice, were you virtual or did you go right into an office?
I started because I did the really slow phasing into having my own practice. I worked for like 6 months, 2 jobs. Like I worked at my group practice and then was getting building up my caseload at Safe Space. So I did it exclusively telehealth. And because I had no idea, like, do I want an office? You know, like, where am I going to get an office? It took me forever to find an office.
Right.
So I did it all telehealth at first.
Did your practice have any issue with you seeing clients outside of the practice?
I got really lucky. I had no idea non-compete was such a huge thing in our world. But I signed on to this company who was there. I won't name names, but like they were a really good company and I liked their practices. And a month or 2 months after signing with them, then they got bought out by a really huge company. And that was hard. That was really hard. So, but I got lucky because if the non-compete didn't apply to the first company and that's who I signed with, but if I would have started 2 months later, I would have had the non-compete apply.
Wow. Yeah,
which to me doesn't seem fair, right? Like, if we're in a mental health crisis, we need clinicians. Like, why would we have people sign non-competes? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I like fully against them, as you probably could guess. But I think from the entrepreneur's standpoint as well, not just from the clinician standpoint, I think that just from the sense that people can build relationships with therapists for years and then be told, oh, you can't see that therapist because they're leaving this practice. Number one, like, I'm sure clients figure out a way, and therapists are like slipping their phone number on the table, And then second of all, like, how horrible is that, that to protect the employer's bottom line, And the way I tend to see it, and sometimes I'll have employers come back to me and say, well, I worked so hard to build this business. And what I like to tell them is, like, you worked hard to build referral sources. You didn't build those, like, you're not seeing those clients. And yes, it's important, but like, ideally in a therapy setting, especially if you're training early career professionals, like, you got to know that a certain number of them are going to leave. I mean, just like, especially if people are getting licensing hours and that sort of thing. And having a non-compete in many ways is very unethical, because you're saying to people, like, you can't leave and take your patients. You can't leave and form another business, And at least in California, they're really hard to enforce, and in many states now they're doing away with them anyway. So hopefully in the next few years they'll be gone. But it's hard to enforce them. And then I always ask clinicians, like, do you actually think your boss is going to enforce it as well?
Yeah.
Or are they going to spend the money to take you to court or something?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And I think if you're a clinician or like a group practice owner and you're training pre-licensed therapists or working with folks really early in their career, isn't that such a cool thing that they can like learn all of those skills and then go on to develop their own business? Like, talk about paying it forward, not like this scarcity mindset. Like, I need to hold on to all these people. Like, there's more than enough clients to go around.
100%. And I think it's something, as people take on associates or interns or employees or what, every state calls it something different. I try to remind people when they set up their businesses, like, when you pick your business structure, assume that the person's going to leave in 2 to 3 years. So let's make that work for your business instead of, you can't become so dependent on them that you can't pay your bills without an employee, because then you shouldn't have that employee, because we're not in the kind of field where that's, you can really rely on somebody to stay. So we could go on a whole tangent about this. So,
hey, therapists, are you listening to the show and thinking, I really want to launch my own private practice, but I have no idea where to start? Make sure to check out Kelley's Private Practice Roadmap course. In the course, Kelley gives you the exact steps you need to open your own thriving practice. You can find the link below in the show notes.
So, okay, you open your private practice, you have some clients, you kind of transition in, and how did you get from that point to where you are now? You're sitting in this beautiful office with the blue couch.
That's so nice.
So what did you do? How did you market your private practice?
I literally followed whatever you told me to do. Like, network with people.
I didn't tell you to say that. We prepped nothing at all for this podcast. I arrived at this podcast 40 minutes late. So
no, you're fine. You're fine. No, but like, networking with people, building relationships with people, the really cliche, like Psychology Today, I built a website, all that kind of stuff. But like, I think the most important thing when I was first starting was relying on my network. And then what you said before, like, provide, even if you have one client, provide really good therapy for that one client. And then if you have 2, do that, and 3, do that. Because now a lot of my referrals, I have things closed off on Psychology Today and therapy done. Like, I'm not accepting new clients technically there, but all of my new referrals are coming from like former clients or current clients or this person or that person in the community. And like, what a cool thing.
Isn't that the best? I mean,
yeah,
when you get those first few clients from your past clients, it's such a huge compliment. and such a testament to the work you're doing with them anyway, you know? And it's funny, you know, my experience is that like I think we need to have these huge networks or all this amazing SEO, but it sounds like a lot of your initial referrals were coming from other people in your community, right? So would you say like other therapists or doctors or who, like what types of professionals?
I think mostly it was coming from a nurse practitioner that we kind of started getting our LPC hours together. And then he went on to get now his doctorate in nursing. So he's a prescriber. And we were just like close and worked together professionally really well. And ended up being at the same group private practice together. And he like sent tons of people my way and then like still does that now in private practice for myself.
It's so funny how that happens.
Yeah. And I think like if you would have told me early in my career, you need to network, I would have said, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. But like now I can realize all of the stuff that I was doing for the past 10 years, all of that was networking.
Right.
Like being friends with people, going out to coffee, talking about cases, talking about our personal lives, like that's networking. It's not this like fancy, scary thing.
Yeah, not like
but I thought it was
a cocktail. Like network is so different. You know, it feels. I always think it feels like therapy in a way. You know, you're just getting coffee with people. Yeah.
Have you done other like networking, in a therapy way, like not in a clinical way?
Yes, only because of like I've had some marketing roles, you know, so I like sometimes we'll have to connect with people that are not clinicians. And that it's always interesting, right? Like when you talk to another therapist, I feel like oftentimes you start talking about work and then all of a sudden you're talking about like their sister who has that, you know, I mean, it's like, but I've found the same thing that you have found, that for my private practice, the majority of my clients come from a few really key professional friends. And it's like we can learn a ton of different ways to bring in clients, and those ways are important. But I'm still a big believer in that, like, if you're one therapist in one office, you can fill a practice with 3 or 4 really good referral sources because, like, kind of like you're saying, like those relationships are maintained over the long term and there's a lot of trust there, you know? And I think it's so important. And again, what you were saying with like this idea that like you've been networking the whole time. I always think that too with like, I don't know, remind students or early career people, like some of the people you're sitting in this room with, in this classroom or in those early settings later are going to go on to open businesses that will refer to you. So, you know, not that you need to put your best foot forward all the time, but like, you know, have some awareness in the relationships early on that these could also be somewhat professional friendships, you know? But we don't think about it in the moment. You know, we're not like, oh, this person's going to like go on to open their own clinic or something like that. But I think it's so true. Exactly what you said.
Yes. Yeah. Like one of my really good friends, we met in master's school. We were on this like counseling student org together. She went on to get her doctorate, and it was this funny, like when she was getting her doctorate hours, I was a clinical like not a supervisor, but like training her to use prolonged exposure therapy. And then she went on to get her PhD, and then she became my clinical supervisor. And it, you know, it's just, but like, we're really good friends. And we met in master's school. So, and she's been like a huge supporter for all of this stuff too. So yeah, it's like those early relationships in your career, like hopefully you get a really good cohort of people and like find your people that way too.
It matters. Those relationships matter. Definitely. Some of the doors that open to me because of early career relationships, which I never, you know, you don't think about in the moment, you know, or at least I didn't think about in the moment when I was like in my master's program at 20, whatever, 23 or something. I didn't think like,
how old are we getting our master's degree? I don't know.
No, I feel like I'm like, oh, I used to have clients ask me how old I was. I'd get calls from parents or I'd get calls from people and be like, how old are you? Nobody asks me anymore. So I just like to put that out there. Like, no one's like, are you too young to be doing this? Maybe they are, but I used to get asked, I'd say like once or twice a week, and I don't have it anymore. So what would you say?
But how did you handle that when you were, because yes, I relate. Like, I look young and people definitely were like, you could be my whatever. And so how did you deal with that?
I'm really honest. I tell the truth.
Yeah.
I just tell them how old I am. And because like, I understand the question. I think it when I'm looking for a new therapist, like where in their life do I want them to be? Or, do I want someone older than me or the same age, depending on the situation I'm facing? So typically I just tell people, again, this hasn't come up since I was in my 20s, but I'll say, at the time I'd be like, well, I'm 28 and I went to school. I'm really confident that I can help you with what we're talking about. And then I would just turn it back on them. But if you're not and you want someone young, I would always make like a joke, like older, younger, curly hair, not curly hair, pink hair, whatever. You tell me what's going to work for you and I'll help you find that person, not me. And I would find 9 times out of 10 that if I was just honest and portrayed that confidence, like, I know I can do this, but it's okay if you don't think so, that they would stay, and if somebody really did say, I want someone older, typically by the time I got into private practice, as opposed to them just being assigned to me by the hospital, they would know based on my picture or my phone call, or I have a lot of like online presence. So you can tell by the way that I talk, how old I am. Usually you could tell that I'm from California, and that sort of thing. So nowadays people don't ask me, but what do you say? Do people ask you what do you say when they ask?
Not anymore. No, I think like you, early in my 20s, they definitely would ask. And I don't even remember what I would say. I think I would just say my age. And then I was a really like anxious young clinician. So I probably erred on like, oh my God, they don't think I'm good, or they don't think I'm ethical, or they don't think I know what I'm doing. And then we would talk about that in clinical supervision and like get support and feedback and stuff. But yeah, I would just tell them my age.
Yeah. I think I remember really talking about it in supervision once, and one of my supervisors saying like, if you told them and they've chosen to come stay with you, any other insecurity that you have about it is about you. You have, you can't bring it into the therapy room now if they have chosen to stay, because I had a client, I think, who was in her 60s and I was in my 20s, and I was really insecure about my age. And that was a good learning experience. Like, I had to deal with it in myself. It didn't have to do with her at that point, But okay, so just tell me, how has your lifestyle changed at all being in private practice? Are you working the same amount of hours? Like, what is your life like outside of private practice now that you've switched into this role?
It's like a miracle. It's so nice. What I just think about working, 40 plus hours at my full-time job in the hospital and like how different things feel now. I try very hard to stick to my boundaries of not working on Fridays. So I have a 3-day week. But I'm a Capricorn, so I tend to be a little bit of a workaholic.
I'm
I'm working on it.
I'm a workaholic for sure.
Yeah.
I love a good Friday off though. I sometimes will switch it up and I'll have a Monday off, which is kind of nice.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like if I feel like if I want to be more productive on the Monday, go to the grocery store and everything versus like, oh, I'm done Friday.
Yeah.
To the beach or something.
Yes.
But I love a 4-day work week for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And I've been like trying to find the right almost cocktail of like, how many hours do I work this day and this day? And like, what's the max number of clients I want to see in a day? For everybody, it's different. Like, I have a couple of friends who really like, 7, 8, even 9 clients in a day, like back to back with no break.
Yeah.
I have to have a break. I have to. So I probably do more like 6 is like the max I do in a day now.
Yeah.
And that feels like good and easy. Yeah. I don't know what you do in your private practice, like kind of how you stagger stuff out.
Nowadays, it's crazy because I also run Private Practice Pro. So I see a much lower caseload than I used to.
Yes.
Which is nice. And also I miss seeing more clients. But so when I only work in private practice, I'm kind of in that camp of like, I like to see 7 or 8 people back to back and then work a 3-day week versus a 4. I kind of feel like if I'm putting pants on, maybe some makeup on anyway, like I just want to do it, and I'm pretty extroverted. So like, you know, I tend to get energy from the sessions. I usually would have a break. I'd see like 4 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. And I like to start early. So I'd start with like an 8 o'clock appointment. But now, and I think this is the beauty of private practice really, I'll only see like 1 or 2 people a day. So I'll have a really small caseload because the rest of the day I'm running Private Practice Pro, or I'm seeing consulting sessions with other therapists, which has been great because at this point in my life, my son is only in school from 9 to 1 each day. And as we saw this morning when I arrived 40 minutes late to this, he doesn't always make it by 9. So in this phase of life with young kids, it's been, you know, I'm somebody who's like 28 clients a week, no matter what. And then I had a baby in 2020, and that was like, oh my God, I have to figure out a way to do this. So it's been really wonderful to be able to pivot in this career and still earn income and still earn money while having a family.
Yeah.
It's been great.
I love that. It's crazy how much Private Practice Pro has like exploded. It's so cool to see.
Well, thank you. It's like, to be honest with you, sometimes surprising to me. Because when I met, I mean, I think I had like 500 followers. I think this is why like your story stands up to me so much, and why Andy emailing. And I want to say it was around the holidays, maybe not, but I can so vividly remember getting the email. And, you know, I think like when I first started doing this, I was just doing consulting for my friends. You know, I mean, I had done some marketing, and I was just taking on therapist consulting clients and talking to them about like, okay, do this. Here's a checklist of the things that you need to do. And, but it's been really cool to see therapists get a chance to start their own businesses. You know, I think there's something like for me, like it was so transformative to be able to shape my own career trajectory, you know? And I always hope that for other people. And it happens faster than you think. Look, it's a year in and you're here. You're like not taking clients off Psychology Today. A year in, that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I'm really full, and I fell into this opportunity where I could rent a suite of offices. I thought I was just looking for myself.
Yeah.
But I have a suite, and Andy like totally redesigned it, like drew up the plans for the architect here, and they did all the work. So I have a brand new office, like exactly how I designed, and now I can rent like there's 4 offices. I can rent the other 3 to other clinicians. This is insane. Like to think that I could do this in a year, I never ever believed that. But like you said in your podcast before, if you know the right steps to follow, you can do it. Like everything is a series of steps, and that like, really stood out to me.
Totally. No. I think people assume like,
it's hard.
You're different or you're hard, you know, but it's not. It's just a series of steps. I always say that. So I'm so happy for you, Kate. Like it's just so cool. And so, okay, we're going to wrap it up, but I want to know, what piece of advice would you have wanted to hear a year ago? Or what do you think you needed to hear a year ago? And you want to leave other people with it?
I want to do like a little soapbox moment for like my people in the LGBTQ community, and like speak to clinicians who also are in the community. There's such a need for providers who are really affirming and like culturally competent, especially for queer people and trans people. So figuring out like good trainings you can go to and how to market yourself as a clinician who's also in the community. Like there's such a need for clients to have themselves, to see themselves represented in a clinician. So like my like future self would tell my past self, it's important. Like this is important work, and like let's represent the community in like a good way, like offer a space for people.
Be brave. People need you. I mean, 100% clients out that need you. So Kate, where can you just give us your contact info? What's your website? Where can people find you? We'll put it in the show notes too, but tell us where.
Yes. I always love when people do this, and I can't believe I'm doing this too now, but yeah, you can find me at my website. So, Safe Space Therapies, safespacemke.com.
Awesome.
And my IG is the same. So
awesome. We'll put it all in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can. And thank you so much for coming on. It's so fun to see you being full circle. I just love it. And only a year. It's wild. So thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ask Kelley Anything is just around the corner. But first, a word from our sponsor. Stay tuned for Kelley's response to your private practice questions.
Therapists, do you want more clients at your full cash rate? Mentaya is a platform that navigates out-of-network benefits for clients. They get clients on average 70% back on therapy by filing claims and chasing down insurance companies. They handle literally everything so that you can focus on what matters. Click the link in the show notes to learn more and get 1 month free using the code PRO.
This is my favorite segment of the show, Ask Kelley Anything, where you can ask all your burning private practice questions. Today's question is about late cancellations and no-shows and private practice paperwork, so here it is.
Hi, Kelley. My name is Sammy, and I'm an LMHC in the Seattle, Washington area. Thank you so much for your content on Instagram and through the podcast. You have helped me so much in the 7 months that I've been developing my private practice. Even though I've been a therapist for the past 4 or 5 years, private practice is a whole new ballgame, so thank you so much for everything that you provide. My question today is regarding late cancellation and no-show policies. You have had amazing scripts that I followed in order to reinforce charging my clients when they late cancel or no-show, but my specific question is for a client that chronically late canceled or no-shows. Do you have a particular policy in your paperwork that states if there's a certain amount of no-shows or late cancellations in a certain amount of time frame, does that then indicate a termination session or talking about forfeiting their spot? Unfortunately, I've just come across this with a client. They had no-showed me so many times in my private practice that I eventually just had to say, hey, I think I need to offer your spot to somebody on my wait list. And they agreed, and it was an okay termination. But I definitely want paperwork in policy in my paperwork to reflect this. So I'd love to know what you do, how you handle these situations, if you have it in your paperwork, and what you recommend. Again, thank you so much for all you do, and I'm really excited to share your response on this.
All right, Sammy, let's answer this question. So first of all, let's talk about this question from a paperwork perspective. So as many of you listening know, I sell a paperwork packet that gives you all the private practice paperwork you need to get started. So the natural next question would be, is this policy in your paperwork packet? So I personally don't include a chronic cancellation policy in my packet because I find that for me, it is on such a case-by-case basis that I don't have kind of one unilateral policy. However, certainly you could add one really easily. And a policy where you had some sort of late cancellation on a chronic basis, you would just say that. You would say if you have 3 or more late cancellations or even 3 or more on-time cancellations within a certain period, then, we will have a conversation about termination. Or I might have to move you to a less ideal time. Or I may no longer be able to hold you in a weekly slot. And you could add that sentence to either my paperwork or paperwork you got somewhere else. And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do that if that was a policy that you felt strongly about. And I really encourage you to do that for any policy that works for your private practice. The beauty of private practice is really that this is your business and you get to make the policies that work for you. And certainly having them outlined in writing beforehand can make later conversations way easier. So I find that for my private practice, I tend to have this conversation in person with clients because it does tend to be really case by case. So what I tell clients is if you are in a weekly slot with me, meaning you have one of my weekly times, and sometimes I'll call them prime times. So 3, 4, and 5 o'clock appointments, after work appointments, after school appointments. I'll say if you hold one of those weekly appointments, then I understand things come up, right? I understand that you might give me 24 hours notice. For example, I canceled today on my therapist with more than 24 hours notice because I had something that is coming up tomorrow. But if you are chronically canceling and I'm still holding that spot for you, even if you're canceling on time, I'm going to have to move you into a less ideal slot. Because unfortunately, when you don't come, even if you can't, if you cancel once or twice a year and it's on time, it's no problem. But if you cancel once a month or even more, then I really can't hold that weekly spot for you. And we'll have to do one of two things. Either I'll have to move you kind of to a less prime time. So for me, that'd be like a 10 a.m. appointment. Or I would have to just schedule on a week-by-week basis. I have plenty of clients that actually feel like relieved by this, and they'll say, no, let's just schedule week by week. I know that won't guarantee me a spot. I know that won't guarantee me a prime time, but maybe they'll say I'm in college or I'm a mom or I'm a teenager and my schedule is always changing. So that's one option to do it. If you have a client who's a chronic canceler or who cancels on time or not on time or whatever, I would just move them to week by week if you wanted to keep them as a client. I certainly would not let resentment build up. And I think that that's something that I see a lot of therapists do where they'll let cancellations go on too long and then they feel resentful and they feel like they want to terminate that person. But realize, depending on the population you work with, so I work a lot with teens who forget appointments and things, sometimes there's an intermediate step where you can say, okay, let's schedule on a week-by-week basis. And you can say to them, why don't we do this? I'm going to schedule you for Tuesdays for my first appointment of the day. If I don't hear from you confirming that, appointment, you don't text me on Monday night saying, hey, I'm coming tomorrow, then I'm going to assume you're not coming and I won't be there. You can set up little systems that still hold them accountable to be the one that texts you. But also provide you with some scheduling flexibility where you're not missing out on one big appointment of the day or something like that. I don't always do that for every client. In fact, I would say I typically do it for clients that I know one of the things that they're working on in therapy is consistency or is fulfilling commitments, or maybe they're a teen and this is one of the lessons they're learning. But I would encourage you to kind of think through some creative options. If you have a client that you feel like really is not ready to be in therapy and they're chronically canceling because they don't want to be there, or they're just not really committed and you're feeling like, this is not the client population I want to be working with, that's okay. In that situation, I would tell somebody, hey, I'm really not able to hold a late cancellation spot for you anymore. I'd be happy to schedule on a week-by-week basis, or maybe we should talk about termination, or we should talk about you ending therapy. And often I find that if you're the one to bring it up, people who don't want to be in therapy will kind of weed themselves out on their own. But that's probably how I would handle it. I hope this helps. I think it's really good to put something in your paperwork if that you want to make sure you come up with a universal policy. But if you want to take that on a case-by-case basis, then go with some of the language I just told you. And I'll see you in our next episode.
If you would like to be featured on Ask Kelley Anything, I love getting listener questions from you guys. Anything about private practice goes. And the best way to do that is actually just to give me a call and leave me a question on my voicemail. So I'm going to tell you the phone number right now and make sure to write it down. Here it is, 805-243-8241. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.